Rev up your engines! All right, on today's rainy day, we got a 2011 Subaru Forester that is stalling out, running poorly, and the check engine light and other lights are on. So we're going to show you how to diagnose it correctly and how to fix it. Now always start logically. We'll start with a big old scan tool. North America knows it's a Forester, and we'll do the full scan. Here we go. Now as it's scanned, it's been a pretty good car for the owner. You can see he's got 192,207 miles on it. Here we go. It's got 10 trouble codes, but 7 of them are the tire pressure system. One of them is the ABS. That has nothing to do with why it's stalling out. What we care about is the engine codes. There's 2. Engine too lean and catalytic system efficiency below threshold. All right. Now what we're going to concentrate first is the P0171 system too lean. There's a bunch of reasons it can do that. Because if the system is running too lean, it's going to make the catalytic converter inefficient. But there's probably nothing wrong with the cat. This thing goes plenty fast. If the cat was clogged up, you wouldn't be able to go over a certain speed. Your temperature gauge would start running too hot. It's not doing that at all. So we got to figure out why it's running too lean. So we got the trouble codes. We got the too lean. And we'll search. Now a vehicle can run lean for many reasons. You can have a vacuum leak on the intake system sucking too much air. You can have a weak fuel pump. You can have a bad mass airflow sensor. You can also have a bad oxygen sensor, although in this car it's called an air-fuel ratio sensor because it's higher evolved. It's more efficient than a plain oxygen sensor. It can give wrong data. And these things are notorious for that. It could also be a clogged up catalytic converter, but like I said, this baby isn't clogged up because it goes plenty fast enough. If it was clogged up, the exhaust couldn't go out the back. It'd build up pressure. The engine would overheat. You could only go over a certain speed. This doesn't show that at all. So we're going to have to look at the live data and see what the heck is going on. I noticed one thing, okay? The idle is steady. It's not vacillating. And the engine's running smooth. It's not shaking at all, especially for a car with 192,207 miles on it. So the odds of it having a vacuum leak, making it run poorly, are slim to none. If you got a vacuum leak, it sucks air. The idle will often vacillate up and down as the computer tries to compensate. It is not doing that. We're going to look at the data when it comes up, but that gives you a real good idea. The idle's not vacillating. Probably has nothing to do with a vacuum leak. Now we'll go with the air fuel correction, right? It's 0.8, now it's 0. Well, that's supposed to be perfect when we rev it up. Now it's subtracting fuel, now it's adding fuel. It's adding fuel again. Adding a little bit of fuel there, adding a little bit more fuel, adding a lot more fuel there, even more fuel it's adding. The faster we go, it's adding more fuel. But you can see when we're idling, the correction is 0. If it had a vacuum leak, at idle, the correction would be the worst because the vacuum leak sucking air is going to be the worst at the lower speed idling because it's higher percentage of it except when you're going at a high speed. This starts adding fuel the faster you go. So somehow we probably are either having a problem with the metering system, the oxygen sensor, or we call it the air-fuel ratio sensor now because it costs more money, it's fancier, or not enough fuel going into the system. Next we're going to look at the mass airflow. This is how much air is flowing. As we rev it up, it should go up. Notice it goes way up. That seems to be working perfectly fine. And when we let go, it should go down, which is exactly what it's doing. So it looks like there's nothing wrong with the mass airflow sensor. You could get intermittent glitches, but it's acting like it should. The variable valve timing system is working right. Now here we have the airflow sensor, right? This is number 1, the one I was worried about, right? And it's showing the current, which is 0 milliamps, and the resistance, which is 40 ohms. When we turn the car off and it's just sitting there, the airflow sensor, the resistance is 255 ohms, just sitting there. See, with the key turned on, car not moving. The oxygen sensor resistance is 255 ohms. So, as you can see in my data system, it's supposed to be 2.0 2 ohms plus or minus 0.45. That's 2.2 ohms. This is 255 ohms. So we know that air-fuel ratio sensor has gone bad. It's the expensive one, the one that costs $275.83. But let me warn you, on these Subarus, the aftermarket sensors often will not work. You have to go OEM. Now, if you can buy it somewhere besides the dealer and get a better price, fine. But make sure it's OEM and not aftermarket. For example, I just Googled it, and what did I find? I found the upstream one. It's Denso. It's original equipment. You can see it's $143.65 if you don't mind waiting for it to be shipped. So it's $100 savings for the same part. So the customer's going to end up ordering one, putting it on. It's simple. It's just on bolts and bolt on. It's a very simple thing to do. It's just right under the hood. There's a picture of it right here. This is the #1 oxygen sensor on the front of the car, right on the exhaust. We'll zoom in. You can see front oxygen sensor is #1, which is right here, just on screws. But as long as I'm here, we might as well look at the rest of the data. See the air fuel correction, it's adding 3%. Well, the sensor's just doing wrong data, it screws the whole thing up. And you can see as we rev it up, it starts correcting even more fuel, because it's squirrely. Just to make sure it's no fluke, we shut it off, and then the resistance goes right back up to 255, and it's supposed to be 2.5. You can see it's 4 cylinders, there's no misfires, there's nothing wrong with the engine. So this basically showed you how a machine like this, man, does it beat having to take all the car apart, measure the sensors and stuff. The computer's doing it all. You can find out what's wrong in a snap without guessing with very expensive pieces. Somebody told this guy needed a mass airflow sensor. No, he doesn't. It's working perfectly fine. The catalytic converter quotes as being inefficient, but if the air-fuel ratio sensor is bad, that's what gives data to the computer to see if the catalytic converter is bad or not. And of course, if it's bad, it's going to get bad data, then it's going to flag the converter. The converter's not bad. As you can see, it's not overheating. We'll take it for a spin. Tempting to reset the computer, but as you can see, as I try to reset it, quick erase, it's trying to clear the ECM, but it won't because they're hard codes. Well, the computer knows that that sensor has got too much resistance. That's one of the checks the computer does when you do a test. When you start your car, it tests the whole system, and that's why it comes on so fast, because that thing obviously has an internal short. Too much resistance means it's shorted out inside, and electricity doesn't flow correctly. Before I take it for a test, I'll show you the sensor. There it is right down there. See it right down there. That black wire goes to that black connector that screws onto the exhaust manifold. That's the sensor #1 that you need to change. So I'll close the hood, take it for a road test. It's not really running all that bad. It's a Subaru, it's all-wheel drive, so I don't have to worry about sliding in the rain. It's got decent acceleration. Take it out to the back of road, see how it accelerates. Now, in the back, I can hear a roaring wheel bearing at some point in time. Going to need rear wheel bearings. Well, it does have 192,000 miles on it. Now, interestingly enough, if you look, there's no water temperature gauge. That's a cheesy thing. They do make these Subarus a little bit too cheap. If it were my car, I'd put a temperature gauge, probably mounted up here or over here. You want to know the temperature of the engine. They've just gone too cheap on these. All they do is give you an idiot warning light. Looking around, nobody's coming, nobody's coming. Get down the back of road here, we'll go to our little drag strip. I mean, this isn't a racehorse, it doesn't have that much horsepower, but we're going to see how it accelerates and how it operates at higher speeds. So we'll come to a stop here, and here we go. Like I say, no racehorse, but it accelerates. Shifts still smoothly. No problem, it's going, you know, it's going 60 miles an hour. It's not hesitating, it's pulling. Fuel pump's pumping enough fuel. But I can really hear the rear wheel bearings, they're going out. I hear them humming. So you want to accelerate. It's accelerating fine, so more or less, this is a minor glitch that a new air-fuel ratio sensor will fix, but like I say, they're gonna wait until they can get one at least $100 cheaper than what the dealer wants for them, and they'll have to order it. But yeah, it runs good enough for now until they put one on, and we'll just ignore the tire pressure monitoring system. A bunch of the sensors are just worn out. I do have to say, hey, this thing handles pretty good in the rain on twisty roads. Look, I'm accelerating, it's not slipping at all. I mean, I can see why Subaru fans like them. Great driving in the rain, 192,000 miles, still shifts like a dream. The engine still runs pretty good. just needs a new air-fuel ratio sensor. Now I'm driving around, the check engine light hasn't come on back yet, so I'm gonna try something that might save me even more money. I'm gonna put some of Bernie's fuel cleaner in a gas tank and have him drive it around. And you never know, maybe the sensor will be cleaned out by that. It'll stop running lean. It'll also clean the fuel injectors, and maybe you won't even have to buy that stupid part. So we'll get a little of Bernie's fuel cleaner, put it in the gas tank. You never know, maybe you won't need to buy those parts. It's running lean, lots of things can cause it, but look at those fuel trims. If you have a vacuum leak at lower speeds, it's going to add the most fuel because that vacuum leak is a higher percentage of the fuel going to the engine because it's just idling. But if you rev the engine up and it needs more fuel, the fuel trims would actually go down if you had a vacuum leak because it would have to trim less because of all the extra fuel that's being sent in to counteract the vacuum leak that occurs more at a lower speed. So we knew this wasn't a vacuum leak because when we revved the engine up, it added more and more fuel. With the machine that I had, all I had to do is, okay, maybe it's the air-fuel ratio sensor. We looked at the sensor, turned the key on, 255 ohms is supposed to be 2.5. Obviously, it's broken. That's the problem that caused this. Now, the owner thought it might have been a mass airflow sensor. Well, I watched the data, it was low, I revved it up, it went high, I let down, it went down. It was working pretty good, and the catalytic converter, if it was clogged up, it can make it run lean too. But this one's not clogged, it went 60, 70, no problem, right? I wish it would have had a temperature gauge, then we could watch that, because if your cat's going bad, and it's clogged, the temperature gauge will start reading higher and higher because the hot gas can't exit, makes the engine run hotter. We're only going to find this out with time, but we might also have learned that Bernie's cleaner might be able to clean that air-fuel ratio sensor. It'll also clean the fuel injectors. So if it stops running lean and his light doesn't come on and it doesn't stall for him anymore, hey, Bernie's cleaner might have fixed it. That we'll find out over time. I'm going to drive around all day, see if anything happens later. But if it does, I'll talk about it. If you've got a problem, hey, contact me. This guy did. Now he's getting his car fixed, maybe for nothing, but if not nothing, he can buy that part for $100-something cheaper than I'm able to get it here, and I'd have to special order it anyways. So, maybe Bernie's cleaner will work, and he won't have to do anything. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.